What up, Marsh Pod? We're recording this on a Monday, just ahead of the triple header here on SimWorld TV, 7 p.m. Philadelphia OGs. I got very little faith in Philadelphia in that one, not because they're not a good basketball team, they're not well coached, they don't have talent on it. They do. They got all the above. Originators have just been dominant, and I think in order for Philadelphia to get that win, we're going to need to see something out of Jermaine Owens to try to slow down Cooper Flagg, because right now nobody except really Bay Area has managed to do that. And of course, last game out, Cooper Flagg wasn't elite, but this is still such a talented roster with Jay Laster kind of coming into form. 3 games, that one's our first. It should be a great one, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about a little bit of Marco Jacobs and then a little bit of NFL. We'll start with Jacobs. Look, Jacobs, 19th composite ranked player in SimWorld Prep, and he's had kind of an out-of-nowhere run here for a roster that, and rather a team in Queen City that just, hasn't quite put it together. They won their last one out. They're 3-6. That's bottom of the Southern region. They've got a huge hill to climb up if they're trying to chase down Gulf Coast or Indy. The good news is there's quite a bit of range in there for them between 3 down to them, right? ATLians and Southeast at 5 and 4. You can get to 500 to get in. And obviously with the new playoff format being all 32 teams making it, the risk balance is just not there. And it's one of the things I personally prefer. You got to earn your way in type of tournament. That you see at the collegiate and the professional level, because we lose the value of these games early on in the season. If you dig a big hole for yourself, Queen City Kings does, man, you got to figure it out, because if you don't, your season's ending very quick. Now, the great news is more meaningful basketball throughout the season. The bad news is less meaningful basketball at the same token, because these teams atop the divisions just haven't been given the test that they need, or rather that the test that they've been passing with flying colors. The reward is maybe a better matchup in the first round, and you have to imagine every team is trying to match up with one of Middle East or Latin America. Middle East 2 wins, Latin America 1 win, of course, Gotham 5 in the North sitting with 2 wins each too, though. So you want to get a top 4 seed right now. That would be Gulf Coast, it'd be the Originators, it'd be Cascadia, and then it would be, depending on the tiebreaker, one of Lakeshore, Indy, or Heartland as the top 4. But to Marco Jacobs specifically, he is the light at the end of the tunnel right now for Queen City Kings. He's been a really dynamic basketball player. He's been one of the few good scorers from deep this season. We've seen a major fall in three-point efficiency this season. Now, some of that due to some of the people that left SimWorld Prep. Trey Turner had a phenomenal season a year ago. He's gone. The other kind of notable guys from a season ago, Fareed Redmond, he's out the door. Ireland Early, all 3 of those are having phenomenal seasons at the SimWorld U level. But if you look at the top 10 3-point field goal percentages made this season, number 10 is JJ Hoops at 43%. A year ago, the 10th best mark was Fareed Redmond at 50.8. If you put Fareed Redmond in here, he would be number 6th in SimWorld Prep in 3-pointers made. That's not a surprising thing. I thought last season was an outlier in terms of how much 3-point efficiency we've seen. But Marco Jacobs is the outlier to that. He's hitting 51% right now. That's 4th in SimWorld Prep. But what he's been able to do right now, and I'd expect to see even more from him, because he's been able to not only be an efficient deep threat, but he's been the fulcrum of an offense that has kind of been figuring it out, right? Queen City Kings came in with a lot of expectation. They felt as if they had a roster, and it seemed as if from the outside with a lot of talent there that they would be able to kind of put together some type of game program, game plan that would be tough to beat. Yet we haven't seen that from them. 3-6 to start the season. It's Jacobs. We haven't seen anything from Nick Hugo. And then it might be Sky Durant as your number 2. But Marco Jacobs is the reason they can move on, because he is an incredible downhill threat. He's proven that this season. He has the ability to stretch the floor and to create 3 levels of defense or 3 levels of attack that previously Queen City didn't really have the opportunity for. On top of that, he's a phenomenal playmaker, right? 4.4 assists. He's getting people involved. What you'd expect to see or maybe hope to see is him almost opening up the floor for Nick Hugo. Nick Hugo was a top 10 guy last season. He hasn't left, but he hasn't been getting the opportunities that we saw a season ago from Run DMV. I think that's a lot of this group kind of figuring it out. They tried to figure out who their top guys are, and they tried to figure out where they could go with the pieces that they have on it. I think that period is over. And I think Marco Jacobs has put his stamp down as saying, the ball runs through me, and we can start figuring this thing out. Where they go from here, I'm not saying it's an uphill climb, but the immediate future looks kind of good. Matchup with Africa, matchup with Beyond the Arch, and then matchup with Showtime Basketball to close out the month. I think that's a very easy 2-1 start. And then as you look forward to February, you've got games against H-Town, who's been struggling, AT Aliens, who's been up and down, APAC, who we saw over the weekend, didn't really have its best pieces before it gets Gulf Coast and Rocky Mountain to close out the month of February. Their next 5 games, they could very easily go 4-1, 3-2, worst case scenario. If they're able to do that, right, climb back up, get close to, or maybe start flirting with going over 500 by the end of February, then this is all for naught in terms of early season concerns. They can easily find a way out of this, and I think the only way for them to efficiently do that right now is on the back of Marco Jacobs and riding this newfound talent that we've had. I don't think many people came into the season saying Marco Jacobs is that guy, and I think at number 19 compositely ranked, probably deserves a step up from that, probably deserves to be in the top 15. We all know the rules, SimWorld stock, I can't buy anything until the new rankings come out. By the time the new rankings come out, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to afford him. He's just been that good of a basketball player for Queen City Kings. So, yeah, the early season struggles are concerning. Yeah, it's a little bit lower than expectation. But I don't think that we look at this roster right now and say there's doom and gloom only to come. This is not a 3-6 roster with 3-6 talent. I think that's going to start changing. Let's shift gears. NFL wildcard, first 2 days of it. We got 2 more games here on MLK Day. Obviously, the SimWorld TV games should be taking precedent because you can just follow those scores along because Buffalo could very well be beaten up on Pittsburgh by the time you want to watch that thing anyway. And the Eagles, well, who knows what we're getting out of the Eagles. But the first 2 days, Cowboys are who the Cowboys are, man. And at this point in this 30-year odyssey, I don't know that this should be a surprise. Not because of the track record, right? Let's remove the perceptions. Let's remove the opinions and the constant media attention to this roster and in this organization. Let's remove that and look at them purely as a football team. They've never had the type of quarterback that makes a difference, right? Tony Romo was always a step below the Tom Brady's, Phillip Rivers, even though Phillip Rivers never really made runs, but neither did Romo. The Drew Breeses, the Aaron Rodgers, right? There's a reason that Tony Romo was so sought after as a commentator, because by the time that point of his career came around, he just wasn't getting it done to that elite level. Sweet numbers, sick numbers, but he was never an elite quarterback. They never had an elite coach, man. Like the peak of this roster, the Dez Bryant, DeMarco Murray, Tony Romo Cowboys, when they went and Dez caught it in Green Bay. Jason Garrett, Wade Phillips, that's who you've got leading. Like neither of those guys are memorable head coaches. Currently, you've got Mike McCarthy running the show. McCarthy has proven nothing outside of the one Aaron Rodgers-led Super Bowl that he's a top-tier coach in the NFL. But the problem is that Jerry Jones is so damn stubborn with everything that he does that he refuses to have a short leash. Now, look, there's some places that have too short a leash. Tennessee, they never should have fired Mike Vrabel. Vrabel's a great coach, man. You gave him no pieces. Your best piece on that, the best 2 offensive weapons you have is a 30-year-old Derrick Henry and an in his 30s DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, give me those guys 5 years ago. Let's chat. Let's talk turkey. But now that team isn't that good. They didn't have a good quarterback. They had a rookie quarterback trying to figure things out. What did you expect of this roster Mike Vrabel and Tennessee was given? But the Cowboys don't even have that. They ride out disappointment after disappointment because they believe it's there. And I'm never going to be the first person in line to say you fire somebody the moment they can't figure it out. Give them the opportunity to. But this is a team that should have been experimenting with a better head coach like what is his name? Kellen Moore. Jeez, I'm crow, brain fart. They should have been experimenting with Kellen Moore as your head coach rather than let him bolt over to the Chargers. Now, he's, I think, a little bit of wasted opportunity. And again, he missed his opportunity as they don't even use him as the interim head coach. But this is a Cowboys team that has never figured it out as a head coach. They've never been an organization that's been innovative in their hire. They've been safe in their hires. They hired Wade Phillips. He goes good. The moment he starts to struggle, Jason Garrett comes in. He's great. Jason Garrett, just a middle-of-the-road coach. They never got, hey, let's roll the dice here. Let's go for it. They didn't. That's why they brought in Mike McCarthy. Dak Prescott's a good quarterback. CeeDee Lamb is a phenomenal wide receiver, top 5 in the NFL. That offensive line is still really good. That defense is phenomenal. From a talent perspective, remove the jerseys, remove the stars, remove the colors, remove the hoopla that surrounds this organization. It's a really, really good football team. They had some injuries to the secondary, but it's a great defense. But the problem, and they can't get out of their own way, is that they refuse to be innovative. They refuse to take chances. They were innovative when Jimmy Johnson came on. They were innovative when they had Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, and Michael Irvin. They're not innovative anymore. They're middle of the road. They're safe. They're the safe hire, man. They're taking your best friend to prom because you're afraid to ask out your crush. That's what they are. They're in the safety zone. And until they expand out of that, until they're okay with risking some type of future, that's where they're always going to be, right in the middle. Meanwhile, the Packers, Jordan Love has been phenomenal. I don't think there's anything left to say. I thought the boos that came down on Matthew Stafford, they held NBC had the broadcast, they held the guy flipping him off a little longer than you expect from a 3-letter organization that's broadcasting a sporting event. But the boos made no sense, man. This man played for you for 12 years. 12 years. And you sucked, man. Detroit, you sucked. And he gave you everything for 12 years. And he didn't pout. He didn't NBA prima donna ask for a trade because this place sucks. No, he asked for a trade because he said, look, man, you guys aren't going anywhere. How about you help me out? And they said, absolutely. Detroit, you were celebrating 2 years ago when the Rams won a Super Bowl. That was like the closest Detroit had gotten to a Super Bowl championship in ever. And now he comes back and you boo him? So for after Matthew Stafford to say, he's happy for the players, he's right, because fuck them fans, man. Earmuffs. Absolutely ridiculous. Happy for the city of Detroit. Not happy that they had to treat a franchise legend. Now, that's not a high bar to cross if you're in Detroit, but he is. You treat a franchise legend like that, that's cold, man. That's karmic. It's karmic world that you're jumping into that I don't think you should love too much if you're the Detroit Lions. All right, we're back on the broadcast here at 7 p.m. And we'll keep rolling. We'll talk to you on Monday.